Clara watched the woman spit on her pie. Right there in the middle of the market. Broad daylight. The saliva landed on the golden crust Clara had woven at midnight, and the woman smiled like she'd done something righteous. "Wouldn't feed that to my pigs," she said. "Don't know where those fat fingers been." Lucy's hand tightened in Clara's skirt. "Mama?" Clara couldn't speak, couldn't move, could only stand there while laughter spread through the crowd like wildfire. 4 days until they lost everything. And now, this. Subscribe to my channel and follow this story to the end. Comment your city so I can see how far our story travels. Clara picked up the ruined pie with hands that didn't shake. She wouldn't give them that. Wouldn't let them see her crack. Not here. Not in front of Lucy. "Mama," Lucy's voice came out small and broken. "Why did she do that?" Clara wrapped the pie in cloth and set it aside. "Some folks got poison in their hearts, baby. Ain't nothing to do with us." But it was everything to do with them. Clara knew it. The whole market knew it. The woman who'd spit was already walking away, her friends clustering around her like hens around scattered corn. Their whispers carried back sharp and clear. "Did you see her face? Someone had to do it. Woman like that, selling food? It ain't right. Poor child, having a mother like that." Lucy's grip tightened. "I hate them, Mama." "Don't." Clara knelt down, her knees protesting, her dress pulling tight across her hips. She took her daughter's face in both hands. "Don't let them put hate in your heart. That's how they win." "But they're mean." "They are, and we're still standing. That's what matters." Lucy's chin trembled. "Are we going to sell any pies today?" Clara looked at her table. 11 pies left. The ruined one made 12. She'd been here since dawn, and the only money in her box was the 2 pennies Lucy had found in the dirt. "We're gonna try, sweetheart. That's all we can do." The Copper Springs summer market stretched across the town square like a fever dream. Vendors hawked goods from wooden tables. Farmers sold vegetables wilting in the heat. The smell of dust and desperation hung thick in the air. Clara had chosen her spot carefully, near the entrance, where folks had to pass. Good visibility, easy access. None of it mattered. People walked by like her table was invisible. Some glanced over, saw her, looked away fast. Others stared openly, their eyes traveling down her body with that familiar contempt. Too much woman, that's what their looks said. Takes up too much space, probably eats everything she bakes. Clara had heard it all before, had been hearing it her whole life, but it never stopped cutting. "Fresh pie!" Lucy's voice rang out, bright and determined. "Best pie in Texas! My mama made it!" A man in a dusty coat paused, looked at the pies, looked at Clara. "Your mama, huh?" "Yes, sir. She's the best baker in 3 counties." The man's eyes found Clara's waist, her hips, her chest. He smiled, and it wasn't kind. "Bet she samples her own goods plenty." He walked away laughing. Lucy's face crumpled. "Mama, what did he mean?" "Nothing, baby. He didn't mean nothing." But Lucy wasn't stupid. 6 years old and already learning that the world had categories for people. Boxes they got shoved into. And Clara's box was small and mean and didn't have room for things like respect or dignity. The morning crawled by. Clara sold nothing. Not one pie. Not one slice. People bought from every table except hers. She watched a woman purchase a cake that looked 3 days old from the baker 2 spots down. Watched a man buy biscuits so hard they could crack teeth. Nobody wanted what Clara was selling. Not because it wasn't good. Her pies were perfect. She knew it the way she knew her own heartbeat. The crusts were flaky and golden. The fillings were sweet without being cloying. Her mama had taught her, and her mama's mama before that. 3 generations of baking knowledge in every single pie. Didn't matter. Mrs. McAllister. Clara's spine went stiff. She knew that voice. Knew it the way a rabbit knows a hawk's shadow. Mrs. Henrietta Davenport stood at the edge of the table, her parasol tilted against the sun. The mayor's wife wore silk in this heat. Her face was powdered white, her lips pressed thin. Mrs. Davenport, I see you're still persisting. The word came out like an insult. Admirable, I suppose, in its way. Lucy stepped forward. Mama's pies are the best. You should try one. Mrs. Davenport's gaze dropped to Lucy, then rose back to Clara. I'm sure they're very filling. The emphasis on the last word made Clara's cheeks burn. We're doing fine, Mrs. Davenport. Are you? The woman's smile was thin as a blade. I heard about your situation with Mrs. Bellamy. 4 days, isn't it? Until you're turned out? Clara's hands fisted in her apron. Terrible thing, really. A woman in your condition, with a child. No husband, no prospects. Mrs. Davenport clicked her tongue. Some might say it's a judgment. Reaping what one sows. I didn't sow anything except hard work. And yet, the parasol twirled. Here you are, selling pies nobody wants, living on charity you can't afford. Perhaps, she leaned closer, dropping her voice. Perhaps the Lord is trying to tell you something, Mrs. McAllister, about appetite, about excess, about knowing one's place. Clara's vision went red. My place, she heard herself say, is right here, selling pies, same as anyone else. But you're not the same as anyone else, are you? Mrs. Davenport straightened. Good day, Mrs. McAllister. I do hope things improve for you, though I confess I can't imagine how they would. She walked away. Her friends materialized around her like flies on honey. What did she say? Nothing worth repeating. Laughter, light and cruel and carrying. Lucy tugged Clara's sleeve. Mama, I don't like her. Neither do I, baby. She's mean, like the spitting lady. Meaner. The spitting lady's just ignorant. Mrs. Davenport knows exactly what she's doing. The afternoon sun beat down like a hammer. Clara's dress stuck to her back. Sweat dripped between her breasts, down her sides, pooling in places she tried not to think about. The pies were holding up, but barely. Another hour and the heat would turn them. Lucy had stopped calling out to customers. She sat in the dirt behind the table now, drawing patterns with a stick. Her earlier energy had burned away, leaving something too quiet for a 6-year-old. Sweetheart, Clara's voice came out hoarse. Why don't you go get some water? Lucy looked up. Her eyes were red. Will you be okay alone? I'll be fine. Promise? Clara's heart squeezed tight. Promise. Lucy went. Her small figure disappeared into the crowd, and Clara was alone with her unsold pies and the weight of everything she couldn't fix. She let herself feel it then, just for a moment. The exhaustion that went bone deep, the fear that kept her awake at night, the humiliation of standing here all day while people treated her like she was less than human. Samuel had loved her. That was the thing she kept coming back to. Her husband had loved her exactly as she was, had called her beautiful when she felt like a monster, had wrapped his arms around her and said there was just more of her to hold. But Samuel was 2 years dead, and his love didn't pay rent. 4 days, Mrs. Bellamy's voice echoed in her head. 4 days and I'll need that room for paying customers. Clara had 17 cents to her name, 11 pies nobody wanted, and a daughter who deserved better than a mother the whole town despised. "Ma'am?" She looked up, expecting another insult. A man stood in front of her table, tall, broad shoulders straining a work shirt, dark hair with silver at the temples. A scar ran down his left forearm, old and faded. His hands were calloused, his jaw covered in stubble, his eyes the gray of storm clouds. He wasn't looking at her body. He was looking at the pies. "These for sale?" Clara found her voice. "Yes, sir. Apple, peach, and blackberry." "Which one's best?" Nobody had asked her that, not once in 4 hours of standing here. "The apple. Made it fresh this morning." "Mind if I try?" Clara's hands moved before her brain caught up. She cut a slice, her best slice, the one from the center where the filling was thickest. Set it on a cloth napkin because she couldn't afford plates. Held it out. The man took it. Their fingers brushed. His were warm and rough. He bit into the pie. Clara watched his face, watched his jaw work, watched him chew slow and deliberate. His eyes closed. She'd seen this before, people taking a bite to be polite, then making excuses. "Sorry, not hungry." "Sorry, watching my figure." "Sorry, just remembered I don't like apple." The man's eyes opened. "Lord have mercy," he said, quiet like a prayer. Clara blinked. "Sir?" "Where'd you learn to make this?" "My mama. She had a bakery back in Missouri." "She teach you the brown butter?" Clara's breath caught. "You know about that?" "My mother used to do the same thing. Brown butter in the crust, touch of cinnamon, pinch of salt to cut the sweet." His voice had gone rough. "She died 8 years back. Ain't tasted nothing like it since." He looked down at the pie in his hand like it might disappear. "Until right now." Clara didn't know what to say. Words had dried up somewhere in her throat. "How much for all of them?" "I'm sorry?" "The pies. Every last one. How much?" "There's 11. I was asking $1 each, but they've been in the heat, so I could—" $15. "Sir, that's too much." "It ain't enough." He reached into his pocket and pulled out bills. "Got 20 hands at my ranch, ain't had a decent pie in months. These won't last the night." He counted out the money, placed it on her table. Clara stared at it like it might bite. "Can you make more?" "More?" "Regular like, for the ranch. I've been needing a cook since spring. Everyone I hire quits inside a week. Say it's too hard, too hot, too far from town." He paused, and his gray eyes met hers. "Reckon you ain't the quittin' type." Clara's throat worked. "I don't have supplies. Used everything for today." "I got supplies. Kitchen's stocked full. Everything you'd need." Lucy came running up, water sloshing from the cup in her hands. She stopped short when she saw the man. "Mama, who's this?" The man crouched down, put himself at Lucy's level. His knees popped when he did it, and Clara noticed the way he favored his left leg. "Name's Jake Thornton. I own a ranch about 5 miles out." His voice gentled in a way Clara hadn't expected. "I was just asking your mama if she'd consider coming to cook for my men." Lucy's eyes went huge as dinner plates. "A ranch? With horses?" 23 of them. "Mama!" Lucy spun around, grabbed Clara's skirt. "Mama, can we? Please!" Clara's mind raced. A ranch, a job, regular pay. But she knew how this went. A widow living on a single man's property. The talk would be vicious. Mrs. Davenport would feast on it for months. "I can't." Jake Thornton stood. His knees popped again. "Why's that?" "People will talk. About me staying out there. With you." She made herself say it. "Unmarried. Folks always talk. Don't mean you gotta listen. I got a daughter." Can't have her hearing, got a foreman's cottage, separate from the main house. Own door, own lock, own privacy. He paused. And I ain't in the habit of caring what busybodies think. I care. For Lucy's sake. He nodded slow. Didn't push. Didn't argue. Offer stands. You change your mind? Ask anyone in town for the Thornton Ranch. He gathered up the pies, loading them into a crate. Clara watched him work. The strange man who'd tasted her food and talked about his mother, who'd offered her a lifeline without asking nothing in return. Mr. Thornton, he paused. Why me? You don't know nothing about me except I can bake. Something shifted in his face. Not softening exactly. More like a wall coming down just a crack. Know you've been standing in this heat all day while folks spit on your work. Know your girl's been trying to sell pies nobody'll buy. Know you ain't quit yet. He lifted the crate. That's enough to know. He walked toward his wagon. Lucy pulled at Clara's hand. Mama, why didn't you say yes? It's complicated, baby. But he was nice. He liked your pie. And he's got horses. 23 horses, Mama. I know. And we need money. And Mrs. Bellamy's going to throw us out, and— I know, Clara's voice cracked. I know all of that. She watched Jake Thornton's wagon roll away down the dusty street. Watched her best chance disappear with it. They walked back to the boarding house in the dying light. The room was waiting, same as always, small and hot and cramped. One window that stuck halfway. One narrow bed Clara let Lucy have. One corner where Clara slept on a pallet made of old blankets. She set the $15 on the bed. Lucy counted it with careful fingers. Mama, that's a lot. It's 5 days' rent. And food, and maybe the entry fee for the county fair pie competition. But not all three. Never all three. Is it enough? Clara couldn't answer, because enough meant different things now. Enough to survive another month? Maybe. Enough to build a real life? Never. Mama, Lucy's voice went small. If we don't eat much, would it be enough then? Clara's chest caved in. She grabbed her daughter and held on tight. Lucy smelled like dust and sweat and the peppermint stick Clara had bought her 3 weeks ago that she was still rationing, one lick at a time. You're going to eat, sweetheart, every single day. That ain't something we're giving up. But Mama— A knock on the door. Clara tensed. Too early for Mrs. Bellamy. Too late for anyone decent. Who is it? Message for Mrs. McAllister. From Mr. Thornton. Clara opened the door. A boy stood there, maybe 12, dirt on his face and a folded paper in his hand. Said I should wait for an answer, ma'am. Clara unfolded the note. The handwriting was rough, like the man who'd written it. Mrs. McAllister. Forgot to mention. Position comes with room and board. You keep all your wages. Kitchen needs filling by end of week. Summer hands come Monday. If answer's still no, I understand. But if it's maybe, come tomorrow. See the place before you decide. J. Thornton. Lucy pressed against her side, trying to read. What's it say, Mama? Room and board. Keep all wages. That meant every penny she earned would be hers. No rent eating it up. No food costs bleeding her dry. She could save. Could build something. Could give Lucy more than a pallet on the floor. But the talk. The whispers. Mrs. Davenport's smile, sharp as a skinning knife. Ma'am? The boy shifted on his feet. Mr. Thornton's waiting on word. Lucy looked up at her mother, eyes full of hope. Eyes too old for 6 years. Clara thought about the empty pantry. The rent she couldn't pay. The 4 days stretching ahead like a sentence. She thought about the woman who'd spit on her pie. She thought about standing in that market for 6 more hours tomorrow, while people walked past like she was nothing. "Tell Mr. Thornton I'll come in the morning. Just to see." The boy nodded and ran off. Lucy exploded. "Mama, we're going! We're going to the ranch with the horses!" "Just to see, baby. Ain't decided nothing yet." But even as she said it, something shifted in Clara's chest. Something that might have been hope. Something that might have been foolishness. She'd find out which soon enough. Mrs. Bellamy caught her on the stairs that night. "Heard you talking to that Thornton boy." "News travels fast." "Everything travels fast in this town." Mrs. Bellamy's thin mouth got thinner. "You're really thinking about it? Going out there? Living with him?" "Working for him. There's a difference." "Not to decent folks. Not when it's a woman like you and a man like him." "A woman like me." Clara heard the edge in her own voice. "What kind of woman is that, exactly?" Mrs. Bellamy's eyes traveled down, back up. "The kind that ought to be grateful for what she's got, not reaching for what ain't hers." "I'm reaching for a job, same as anyone." "Ain't nothing same about you, Mrs. McAllister. Never has been, never will be." She stepped closer. "You go out there. Don't expect a room here when it all falls apart, and it will fall apart. Men like Thornton don't want women like you for keeps. They want you for—" "Careful." Clara's voice went quiet and cold. "Real careful what you say next." Something flickered in Mrs. Bellamy's face. Maybe surprise. Maybe fear. "I'm trying to help you." "No, you're trying to keep me small, same as everyone else in this town." Clara moved past her toward the room. "I'm done being small." She closed the door, locked it. Lucy was already curled up on the bed, half asleep. Clara sank down onto her pallet and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow she'd see the ranch. Tomorrow she'd decide. But somewhere deep in her gut, the decision was already made. Had been made the moment Jake Thornton looked at her pies instead of her body. The moment he'd tasted her food and talked about his mama. The moment he'd treated her like a person instead of a problem. Clara didn't know if it would last, didn't know if hope was something she was allowed to have anymore. But she was going to find out. Dawn came too fast and too slow at the same time. Clara washed her face with cold water from the basin, brushed Lucy's hair and rebraided it neat. Put on her best dress, the blue one with the buttons that still held. The one that pulled tight across her middle, but couldn't be helped. "Do I look all right, Mama?" Clara looked at her daughter. 6 years old. Gap-toothed smile. Eyes that had seen too much, but still held on to something like wonder. "You look perfect, baby." "So do you." Clara's throat closed up. "Come on, let's go see about this ranch." They walked to the edge of town, where Jake had said to meet. He was already there, waiting with his wagon and a pair of draft horses that looked too well fed to belong to a struggling operation. He climbed down when he saw them coming. "Morning, Mrs. McAllister." He tipped his hat. "Miss Lucy?" "Mr. Thornton?" Clara kept her voice steady. "Thank you for coming." "Wouldn't offer if I didn't mean it." He helped Lucy up onto the wagon seat, then turned to Clara, held out his hand. She hesitated. His hand was big, scarred, waiting. Clara took it. His grip was firm and warm and gone before she could think too much about it. He helped her up like she weighed nothing, and Clara felt something she hadn't felt in years. Seen. Not judged. Just seen. The drive took near an hour over rutted roads that shook the wagon and rattled Clara's teeth. Lucy asked questions the whole way. "How many cows?" 320. "How many chickens?" "Enough for eggs every morning." "Did the horses have names?" "Every one," Jake said. Belle, Dusty, Ranger, Solomon. He named all 23. Didn't have to think about it. Just rattled them off like old friends. What about cats? 3 in the barn. Mauser, Shadow, and a mean orange devil the hands call Diablo. Lucy giggled.
That means devil in Spanish.
Earned it, too. Scratched half my crew at one time or another. Clara watched them talk. Watched the way Jake kept his eyes on the road, but tilted his head toward Lucy when she spoke. Patient. Gentle. Samuel had been like that. Easy with children. Easy with her. Mrs. McAllister, she startled. Yes? You're quiet. Just thinking. Good thoughts or bad? Clara considered. Both. Trying to figure if this is real. Jake nodded slow. Didn't push. The ranch appeared over a rise, and Lucy gasped. It was bigger than Clara expected. A main house, 2 stories, solid wood and stone. A barn twice the size of the boarding house. Outbuildings scattered around. Bunkhouse, tool shed, chicken coop, smokehouse. Fenced pastures rolling toward the horizon. This is yours? 8 years' work. Started with 20 acres and a mule that hated me. Something almost like a smile touched his mouth. Got a few more acres now. Mule died. Lucy laughed. Clara felt her own lips twitch. Come on, Jake said. Kitchen's this way. The kitchen was a revelation. Bigger than Clara's whole room at the boarding house. Cast iron stove with 6 burners. Long prep table scarred by years of use. Shelves stocked full. Flour, sugar, lard, coffee, dried beans, tinned peaches. A cold pantry with real ice, fresh milk, butter, eggs. Clara's hands itched. Her fingers twitched toward the flour, like old friends meeting again. Summer hands come Monday, Jake said from the doorway. 20 of them, plus my foreman Ben, plus me. Breakfast and supper, lunches they pack themselves. What have they been eating? Whatever Ben burns. Good man with cattle. Terrible with a skillet. How terrible? Scorched the beans 3 nights running last week. Clara winced. You can't burn beans if you watch 'em. That's what I told him. He's got other things to watch. She ran her hand along the prep table. Good wood, well kept.
You want to see the cottage? The cottage sat behind the main house, separate but close. 1 room with a real bed, a real mattress, real pillows. A small stove for heat. A window with glass and curtains someone had actually washed. A rocking chair in the corner. Lucy ran circles around the room, touching everything. Mama, look, a real bed with blankets and a chair. Clara stood in the middle of the floor and couldn't breathe. This was more than she'd had in 2 years. More than she'd let herself imagine having again. Ain't much, Jake said from the doorway, but it's private. Door locks from inside. Nobody comes in without your say-so. Why are you doing this? The question came out before she could stop it. Jake's face didn't change. Doing what? Offering me this. You don't know me. You heard what folks say. What they think. Heard what they say about me, too. That I'm cold, antisocial, care more about cattle than people. He paused. Some of it's true. Then why? Because I tasted your pie, and I watched your girl try to sell it while grown folk walked on by. And I saw you stand there all damn day, taking their poison without flinching. His voice had gone quiet. Ain't about what you look like, Mrs. McAllister. It's about whether you can do the work. Can you? Yes. The word came out stronger than she expected. Surprised her with its certainty. Jake nodded. Then that's all that matters to me. They stood there in the cottage doorway, morning light streaming through clean windows, and Clara felt something crack open in her chest. Not hope. She wasn't ready for hope yet.
but maybe something close to it. "I'll do it," she heard herself say. "I'll take the job." Jake's face stayed still, but something shifted in his eyes. "When can you start?" "Tomorrow, if you can send someone for our things." "Wagon'll be there at dawn." Clara almost laughed. "Won't take long to load. Everything we got fits in one box."
Jake didn't react to that, just nodded like it was the most natural thing in the world. 1 box or 10, wagon'll be there. They drove back to town in a different silence than before. Lucy fell asleep against Clara's shoulder, worn out from excitement. Clara watched the land roll by and felt something she'd forgotten how to feel. Possibility. At the edge of town, Jake pulled the horses up. "I'll walk from here," Clara said. "Less for folks to wag about." "Let 'em wag. I got to live with these people if this don't work out." His jaw tightened, but he didn't argue. Clara climbed down, gathered Lucy in her arms. Her daughter stirred but didn't wake. "Mr. Thornton." "Ma'am?" "Thank you for seeing past what most folks see." Something moved across his face, gone before she could name it. "Thank you for saying yes." He drove away. Clara watched until the wagon disappeared, then turned toward the boarding house. Mrs. Bellamy was waiting on the porch. Of course she was. "Made your decision then?" "I have." "And?" Clara shifted Lucy's weight in her arms. Her daughter was getting heavy, growing every day. "Wagon comes at dawn. We'll be out of your hair by breakfast." Mrs. Bellamy's face went tight. "You're making a mistake." "Maybe, but it's mine to make." She walked past, up the stairs, into their room for the last time. She set Lucy on the bed and started packing. 1 box, everything they owned in 1 wooden crate. 2 dresses for Clara, 3 for Lucy. A hairbrush that had been her mama's. Samuel's pocket watch that didn't work anymore, but she couldn't bear to sell. Lucy's rag doll. A Bible with pressed flowers from their wedding day. That was it, the sum total of their lives. Lucy woke while she was finishing. "Mama, what are you doing?" "Packing, baby. We're leaving in the morning." "For the ranch?" "For the ranch." Lucy's face lit up like sunrise. "Forever?" Clara paused, looked at her daughter's hopeful eyes, those eyes that had seen too much disappointment already. "For as long as they'll have us. I think they'll have us forever." Lucy's voice was certain, in the way only children could be certain. "I got a feeling, Mama. A good one." Clara pulled her close, breathed in the smell of dust and peppermint, and something purely Lucy. "I hope you're right, sweetheart. Lord, I hope you're right." Outside the window, the sun was setting. The town of Copper Springs was settling into evening, full of people who'd spit on her pies and laughed at her pain and told her she was nothing. Tomorrow she'd leave them behind. Tomorrow she'd start again. Clara didn't know if it would work. Didn't know if hope was something a woman like her was allowed to keep. But she was done letting other people decide. She was going to find out for herself. The wagon came at dawn, just like Jake promised. Clara was already waiting on the boarding house steps, their single box at her feet, Lucy half asleep against her shoulder. The morning air was cool for once, a brief mercy before the Texas sun started its punishment. A young man drove the wagon. Couldn't have been more than 19, with a face full of freckles and ears that stuck out like jug handles. "Mrs. McAllister? I'm Tommy. Mr. Thornton sent me." "Thank you for coming." Tommy hopped down and grabbed the box before Clara could stop him. He loaded it into the wagon bed, then turned back with a grin. "That everything?" "That's everything." If he thought it was sad, 1 box for 2 lives, he didn't show it. Just helped Lucy up onto the seat like she was a princess boarding a carriage, then offered Clara his hand. "Mr. Thornton said to tell you breakfast is waiting. Cook quit 3 weeks back, so it's just biscuits and coffee.
but he figured you'd want something before you started. Clara climbed up. That's kind of him.
Mr. Thornton ain't much for talking, but he's good people. Tommy clicked his tongue at the horses. You'll see. They rolled out of Copper Springs as the town was waking up. Clara didn't look back. Couldn't bear to see Mrs. Bellamy watching from the window, or Mrs. Davenport taking her morning constitutional, or any of the faces that had made the last 2 years a special kind of hell. She looked forward instead, toward the road, toward the ranch, toward whatever came next. Lucy woke fully about halfway there, her eyes going wide as the landscape changed from dusty town streets to rolling pastures dotted with cattle. "Mama, look! Cows!" "I see 'em, baby." "Are those Mr. Thornton's cows?" Tommy grinned. "Every last one. 320 head. Mr. Thornton knows 'em all by sight. Can tell you which mama belongs to which calf just by looking." "That's a lot of cows." "That's a lot of work, is what it is. Why, we need 20 hands come summer." Lucy bounced on the seat. "And horses? We're going to see the horses?" "Soon as we get there. I'll introduce you to Biscuit myself. She's the gentlest mare we got. Perfect for little ladies." Clara watched her daughter's face light up and felt something loosen in her chest. When was the last time Lucy had smiled like that? Really smiled, without fear or worry lurking underneath. Too long. Far too long. The ranch appeared over the rise, and it looked different in the early morning light. Softer somehow. The main house glowed golden where the sun hit it. Smoke rose from the kitchen chimney. A dog barked somewhere, and chickens scratched in the yard. It looked like a home. Clara pushed that thought away. This was a job, nothing more. She couldn't afford to think of it as anything else. Tommy pulled the wagon up near the main house. Jake was already on the porch, coffee cup in hand, watching them arrive. "Mornin'." "Mr. Thornton." Clara climbed down before anyone could help her. "Thank you for sending the wagon." "Told you I would." He set down his coffee. "Tommy, take their things to the cottage. Lucy, you want to see those horses before breakfast?" Lucy looked at Clara, asking permission. "Go on, baby. I'll come find you after I see the kitchen." Tommy and Lucy headed toward the barn, Lucy already peppering the young man with questions. Her voice carried back, high and happy, and Clara felt that loosening in her chest again. "She's a good kid." Jake's voice was quiet. "She's the best thing I ever did." "I can see that." He turned toward the house. "Kitchen's this way. Figured you'd want to look around before the hands wake up." The kitchen was exactly as Clara remembered, but seeing it in the morning light made it feel real in a way it hadn't before. She walked the space slowly, opening cupboards, checking supplies, running her hands along the work surfaces. "Flowers fresh," Jake said from the doorway. "Got a delivery last week. Eggs come from the hen house every morning. Milk, too, from the dairy cows. Butter's in the cold pantry. You've got ice. Ice house out back. Fill it every winter. Lasts through summer if we're careful." Clara opened the cold pantry. Real ice. Real butter. Cream so thick it barely moved when she tilted the jar. "Lord have mercy," she whispered. "That good or bad?" "I ain't cooked with cream like this in years." She closed the pantry door, afraid if she looked too long, it might disappear. "What do your hands usually eat?" "Whatever's hot and fills the belly. They ain't particular. Breakfast is eggs, bacon, biscuits, coffee. Supper is whatever meat we got. Potatoes, beans, bread. Simple fare." "I can do simple. I can do a lot more than simple, if you want." "I want them fed and happy. Beyond that, it's your kitchen." Your kitchen. The words hit Clara somewhere deep,
When do they eat? 6 in the morning, 6 at night. They take lunch with them to the range, usually cold biscuits and jerky. I can pack better lunches than Matt. I won't argue. Jake pushed off from the doorframe. I'll let you get settled. Anything you need, ask Ben. He's the foreman. Big fellow, beard, usually smells like horses. Mr. Thornton, he paused. I won't let you down. Something flickered across his face. Didn't figure you would. He left, and Clara was alone in her kitchen. Her kitchen. She said it again in her head, trying to make it feel true. Then she tied on her apron and got to work. The ranch hands started trickling in around noon. They came in ones and twos, dusty and tired from morning chores, drawn by the smell of bread baking that Clara hadn't been able to resist. She'd meant to wait, meant to take her time learning the space, but her hands had other ideas. The first one through the door was a massive man with a beard that could house small birds. He stopped dead when he saw her. You the new cook? Clara McAllister. You must be Ben. Yes, ma'am. He sniffed the air. Is that fresh bread? Won't be ready for another hour. Lord Almighty. Ben's face split into a grin. Boys are going to think they died and went to heaven. Word spread fast. By the time Clara pulled the loaves from the oven, half a dozen hands were finding excuses to wander past the kitchen door. They didn't come in, just hovered at the threshold, hats in hands, looking at the bread like it was made of gold. Y'all gonna stand there all day, or you gonna come eat? They came in like a flood. Big men, small men, young and old, all of them crowding around the kitchen table with plates Clara had found in the cupboard. She sliced the bread thick, slathered it with butter, and watched them eat like they'd been starving. Mrs. McAllister, a young hand with barely any whiskers, looked up at her with something like worship. This is the best bread I ever had. It's just bread. No, ma'am, it ain't just nothin'. Ben nodded, his mouth full. Boy's right. We've been eating hardtack and burned biscuits for 3 weeks. This is... He swallowed. This is real food. Clara felt heat rise to her cheeks. Wait till you taste supper. A ripple went through the men. Anticipation. Hope. It had been so long since anyone looked at her with anything but contempt. She didn't know what to do with this. Didn't know where to put it. All right, get on out of here. I got work to do, and so do you. They went, but slowly, casting looks back at the kitchen like they were leaving paradise. Ben was the last to go. Ma'am? Yes? Thank you for coming out here. The boys... He cleared his throat. We needed this. More than you know. He left before Clara could respond. She stood alone in the kitchen, surrounded by empty plates and crumbs, and felt something she'd almost forgotten how to feel. Useful. Wanted. Maybe even valued. Lucy found her an hour later, bursting through the door with hay in her hair and joy on her face. Mama, I rode a horse. Tommy put me on Biscuit and walked me around the corral, and she's so soft and gentle, and she likes apples. And Tommy says I'm a natural. Clara caught her daughter in a hug. Slow down, baby. Breathe. I can't breathe, Mama. I'm too happy to breathe. Clara laughed. Actually laughed, the sound strange in her own ears. You smell like horse. I know. Ain't it wonderful? It was wonderful. All of it. The kitchen full of good food, the hands who ate like her cooking mattered, her daughter covered in hay and happier than she'd been in years. Clara held on tight and let herself feel it. Just for a moment. Supper was a revelation. Clara made roast beef with gravy, mashed potatoes, green beans from the garden, fresh bread, and 2 apple pies for dessert. She'd found the apples in the cold pantry and couldn't resist. 22 men crowded into the dining room. The noise was incredible. Chairs scraping, plates clanking, voices overlapping in a chaos of hunger and gratitude. Jake sat at the head of the table, quiet amid the storm. He ate slowly, methodically, but Clara saw the way his eyes closed when he tasted the beef, saw the almost imperceptible nod when he bit into the bread. "Mrs. McAllister," one of the hands raised his voice above the din. "Where'd you learn to cook like this?"
My mama, she had a bakery back in Missouri.
"She still there?"
Passed on. 5 years now.
"I'm sorry, ma'am."
Don't be. She's in every biscuit I make, every pie. Best way to remember someone, I figure.
The table went quiet for a moment. Then Ben lifted his coffee cup. "To Mrs. McAllister's mama, and to Mrs. McAllister for keeping her alive." The men raised their cups. Even Jake, though he didn't say anything, just lifted his cup and drank. Clara's throat went tight. After supper, she served the pies. The sounds the men made were almost indecent. Groans of pleasure, sighs of satisfaction, forks scraping plates to get every last bit. "Ma'am," the young hand who'd praised her bread was staring at his empty plate like he might cry. "Ma'am, I ain't tasted pie like this since I left home." "Where's home?" "Virginia. My mama used to make apple pie every Sunday." "She's still there?" "Yes, ma'am. Waiting for me to make enough money to bring her out west." Clara cut him another slice. "Then you better eat up. Need your strength to work hard enough to earn that money." The boy's eyes went bright. "Thank you, ma'am." Jake caught her eye across the table. Didn't smile exactly, but something in his face softened. An acknowledgement, an appreciation. Clara looked away before she could think too much about what that meant. The days fell into rhythm after that. Clara woke before dawn, started breakfast, fed the hands, cleaned up, prepped lunch, took a breath. Started supper, fed the hands again, cleaned up, collapsed into bed. Repeat. It was hard work, harder than anything she'd done at the boarding house. Her feet ached by midday, her back screamed by evening. Her hands were constantly burned or cut or covered in flour. She loved every minute of it. Lucy helped when she could, setting tables, washing dishes, carrying bread to the dining room. The hands adopted her like a mascot, slipping her peppermints and teaching her the names of all the horses. Tommy took her riding every afternoon. Clara watched from the kitchen window as her daughter learned to sit a horse, to hold the reins, to trust the animal beneath her. Samuel would have loved this. Would have loved seeing his daughter bloom like a flower finally finding sun. Clara pushed that thought away. Couldn't afford to think about Samuel. Not here, not now. But sometimes, late at night, lying in the cottage bed that was bigger and softer than anything she'd slept in for years, she let herself remember. His laugh, his hands, the way he'd looked at her like she was the most beautiful woman in the world. "You're perfect, Clara Jane. Don't let anyone tell you different." But Samuel was gone, and perfection was a lie she'd stopped believing in a long time ago. A week passed, then 2. Clara stopped waiting for the other shoe to drop, stopped bracing for the moment Jake would realize he'd made a mistake, stopped expecting cruelty around every corner. The hands treated her with respect. Not the fake respect of people who looked down on her, but real respect. They said please and thank you, cleaned their plates, complimented her cooking like it mattered. And Jake was a mystery she couldn't quite solve. He came to meals, ate quietly, left without lingering. Sometimes she caught him watching her, but he always looked away before she could read his expression. He was polite, even kind in his gruff way, but distant, like there was a wall around him 10 feet thick and 100 years old. Clara understood walls, had built plenty of her own. She didn't push, didn't pry, just cooked his food, kept his kitchen running, and tried not to wonder about the shadows in his eyes. One night, she couldn't sleep. The summer heat had barely faded, leaving the cottage stuffy and close. Clara lay in bed and stared at the ceiling and listened to Lucy's soft breathing. Finally, she gave up, slipped out of bed, pulled on a shawl, and stepped onto the cottage porch. The ranch was quiet. Silver moonlight painted everything soft and strange. Somewhere, an owl called. The cattle lowed in the distance, a low and peaceful sound. Clara closed her eyes and breathed deep. Can't sleep either? She jumped, turned.
Jake sat on the main house porch, barely visible in the shadows. The orange glow of a cigarette marked where he was.
Sorry, didn't mean to startle you. It's all right.
Clara pulled her shawl tighter.
Didn't know anyone else was up. Most nights I am. Sleep don't come easy.
She should go back inside, should leave him to his solitude. But something made her feet move toward the main house instead. She stopped at the bottom of the porch steps, close enough to talk, far enough to run if she needed to.
Mind if I ask why?
Jake was quiet for a long moment. The cigarette glowed brighter as he inhaled. War, he finally said. Things I saw. Things I did. They don't stay buried like they should. Clara's chest tightened.
You fought?
Union Army, 3 years. He exhaled smoke into the darkness. Lost a lot of friends. Killed a lot of men. Don't know which one haunts me more.
I'm sorry.
Don't be. Wasn't your doing. He paused.
Why can't you sleep? Clara thought about lying, thought about saying something easy, something that didn't matter.
Instead, she told the truth. Keep waiting for something to go wrong. Keep expecting to wake up and find out this was all a dream, that I'm still in that boarding house room, counting pennies and wondering how to feed my daughter. It ain't a dream.
I know, but knowing and believing ain't the same thing.
Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he stood, ground out his cigarette, and walked to the porch railing. Come up here. I want to show you something. Clara hesitated. Then she climbed the steps. Jake pointed toward the east, where the land rolled away toward the horizon. See that ridge? That's where my property ends. Everything between here and there is mine. His voice was quiet, but something fierce burned underneath. I built this place from nothing, Mrs. McAllister. Came out here with $20 and a dream. Everyone said I'd fail. Said a man alone couldn't carve a ranch out of wilderness. But you did. I did. Took 8 years of back-breaking work, but I did. He turned to look at her. In the moonlight, his eyes were silver. Point is, I know what it's like. Waiting for the other shoe, expecting everything to fall apart. It don't go away, that feeling, but it gets quieter. Eventually. Clara's throat ached. How long did it take? I'll let you know when it happens. She laughed before she could stop herself. A real laugh, surprised out of her. Something shifted in Jake's face. His mouth twitched, almost a smile. You should do that more often.
Do what?
Laugh. It's a good sound. Clara didn't know what to say to that, so she said nothing. They stood there in the moonlight, two people who couldn't sleep, and let the silence speak for itself. I should get back, Clara finally said. Lucy might wake up. Good night, Mrs. McAllister.
Good night, Mr. Thornton.
She walked back to the cottage, didn't look back, but she felt him watching her until she closed the door. Inside, Lucy was still sleeping, peaceful and untroubled. Clara lay down beside her daughter and stared at the ceiling. Her heart was beating too fast. Her skin felt too warm. She told herself it was the heat, told herself it was nothing. But she knew better. She was starting to feel things she had no right to feel. Things that could only end in heartbreak. She should leave, should take Lucy and go before this went any further. But she didn't move. Couldn't move. Because for the first time in 2 years, Clara McAllister felt like she belonged somewhere. Like she mattered to someone. And she wasn't ready to give that up. Not yet. Morning came, and with it, trouble. Clara was rolling biscuit dough when she heard the wagon, heard the voices, heard Lucy's excited squeal turn into something else, something afraid. She was out the kitchen door before she knew she was moving. 3 women stood in the ranch yard. Mrs. Davenport at the front, parasol raised against the morning sun. Behind her, the sheriff's wife and a woman Clara didn't recognize. Lucy had frozen halfway between the barn and the house. Tommy stood beside her, his face gone pale. "Mrs. Davenport," Clara kept her voice steady, "what brings you out here?" "Mrs. McAllister," the woman's smile was blade thin, "I might ask you the same question, although I suppose the answer is obvious. I work here. I cook for the ranch hands. Is that what they're calling it now?" Clara's hands fisted at her sides. "Say what you mean to say." "Very well." Mrs. Davenport stepped closer. Her eyes swept over Clara. That familiar assessment, that familiar dismissal. "The women of Copper Springs are concerned. A widow of your reputation, living alone on a bachelor's property? Surely you can see how that looks." "I see a woman doing honest work for honest pay." "Do you? Because what we see is something quite different." Mrs. Davenport's voice dropped, turned poisonous. "We see a woman who couldn't keep a husband, couldn't keep a home, couldn't even sell pies without causing a scene. A woman who has now attached herself to a man of means like a tick to a dog." "Mama?" Lucy's voice was small and scared. Clara didn't look at her daughter, couldn't afford to break. "You don't know anything about me." "I know enough. I know what you are, what you've always been." Mrs. Davenport leaned closer, close enough that Clara could smell her rose perfume. "A burden, an embarrassment. A woman who takes up far too much space in every possible way." The words hit like fists. Clara felt them land, felt them bruise. But she didn't flinch, didn't give them the satisfaction. "Are you finished?" Mrs. Davenport blinked. Whatever reaction she'd expected, it wasn't this. "I beg your pardon?" "I asked if you're finished because I've got 22 hungry men waiting on breakfast, and I don't have time for your poison." "Why, you—" "Clara!" Jake's voice cut across the yard like a whip crack. He was striding toward them from the barn, his face thunderous. Behind him, Ben and several hands had stopped their work to watch. "Mr. Thornton," Mrs. Davenport's smile flickered back on. "We were just—" "I heard what you were just." Jake stopped beside Clara. Close. Closer than he needed to be. "And I'm telling you to get off my land." "Surely you can't expect—" "I expect nothing from you, Mrs. Davenport. Never have. But I'll tell you what I won't tolerate. I won't tolerate anyone coming onto my property to insult my cook, my employee. A woman who's done nothing but work hard and feed my men well." "Your cook?" Mrs. Davenport's lip curled. "Is that really all she is to you?" "That's none of your damn business." Jake's voice dropped low and dangerous. "Now get, before I have my boys escort you out." The silence stretched taut as a bowstring. Then Mrs. Davenport turned on her heel. The other women followed, climbing back into their buggy with pinched faces and outraged whispers. "This isn't over," Mrs. Davenport called as they pulled away. "The town will hear about this. All of it." "Let 'em hear." Jake didn't move until the buggy disappeared over the hill. Then he turned to Clara. "You all right?" Clara's hands were shaking. She'd been holding herself so tight she hadn't noticed until now.
I'm fine.
No, you ain't, his voice gentled. But you will be. They're just words. Can't hurt you unless you let 'em.
I've been letting them hurt me my whole life.
The admission came out before she could stop it. Clara pressed her hand to her mouth, horrified. Jake didn't say anything, just stood there, solid and steady, waiting.
I'm sorry.
Clara's voice shook.
I shouldn't have.
Don't apologize. His hand came up, hesitated, then settled on her shoulder, brief and warm.
You got nothing to apologize for.
Lucy ran to her then, wrapping herself around Clara's legs.
Mama, those ladies were mean. I hate them.
Clara sank down and held her daughter tight.
I know, baby. I know.
Over Lucy's head, she met Jake's eyes. He nodded once, turned, and walked away. But something had changed. Something had shifted between them, quiet as a breath. Clara didn't know what to call it yet, but she knew it was there. And she knew it was growing. The days after Mrs. Davenport's visit were different. Clara couldn't say exactly how. The work was the same, the meals, the cleaning, the endless rhythm of ranch life. But something had shifted. Something in the way Jake looked at her. Something in the way she caught herself, looking back. She told herself it was gratitude. He'd defended her. Anyone would feel grateful. But gratitude didn't make her heart race when he walked into the kitchen.
Gratitude didn't keep her awake at night, wondering what he was thinking, if he was sleeping, if he was sitting on that porch watching the stars like she wanted to be.
It wasn't gratitude, and that terrified her. 3 weeks into her time at the ranch, Clara found Jake's shirt on the kitchen chair, torn at the shoulder, blood-stained at the cuff. She'd seen him favor his left arm at supper the night before, but he hadn't said anything, and she hadn't asked. Now she picked up the shirt and examined the damage. The tear was clean, easy to mend. The blood had dried, but cold water and lye soap would get most of it out. She started mending before she realized what she was doing. Her hands knew the work, knew the rhythm of needle and thread, the pull of fabric, the satisfaction of making something broken whole again. She'd mended Samuel's shirts 1,000 times,
Had sat by the fire in their little house in Missouri, stitching buttons and patching elbows, while he read aloud from whatever book he'd borrowed from the lending library.
Samuel.
Clara's hands stilled. She hadn't thought about him in days. Hadn't felt that familiar ache, that hollow space where he used to be. Was that wrong? Was she forgetting him? Or was she finally starting to heal? That's my shirt. Clara startled. Jake stood in the kitchen doorway, watching her with an expression she couldn't read. I found it on the chair. Figured you'd want it mended.
He didn't have to do that.
I know. She pulled the last stitch tight, snipped the thread. Already done now. Jake crossed the kitchen and took the shirt from her hands. Their fingers brushed. Clara's breath caught.
Thank you, he said quietly. It's just a shirt. Ain't about the shirt.
He looked at her then, really looked, and Clara felt stripped bare.
My mama used to mend my clothes before she passed.
Ain't had anyone do that since.
8 years is a long time to go without someone taking care of you.
Got used to it.
Don't mean you should have to. The words hung between them, heavy, loaded with meaning neither of them was ready to name. Jake cleared his throat. Lucy's asking for you. Tommy's teaching her to rope, and she wants you to watch. Clara wiped her hands on her apron.
I should go then.
Clara. She froze. He'd never used her first name before. I'm glad you're here. His voice was rough. Wanted you to know that. Then he was gone, leaving Clara alone with the echo of her name on his lips, and a heart that wouldn't stop racing. Lucy was getting good at roping. Clara watched from the fence as her daughter swung the lasso over her head, tongue poking out in concentration. Tommy stood beside her, offering encouragement. "That's it, little miss. Nice and easy. Don't think too hard about it." The rope flew through the air and landed perfectly around the fence post. "Mama, did you see? Did you see?" "I saw, baby. That was perfect." Lucy ran to her, all flying braids and dirt-smudged cheeks. "Tommy says I'm the best student he ever had." "Tommy's a flatterer." "Am not," Tommy grinned, pushing his hat back. "She's a natural. Give her a year, she'll be roping cattle better than half the hands." Lucy beamed. "Can I show Mr. Jake? Please, Mama, I want to show him." "Mr. Thornton's busy, sweetheart." "I ain't that busy." Clara turned. Jake was walking toward them from the barn, his stride easy, his face softer than she'd ever seen it. "Mr. Jake!" Lucy grabbed his hand and pulled him toward the fence post. "Watch me! Watch what I can do!" She ran back to Tommy, grabbed the rope, and went through the motions again. The lasso sailed through the air, landed true. "Well, I'll be." Jake crouched down as Lucy ran back. "That's some fine roping, Miss Lucy." "Tommy taught me. Tommy's a good teacher, but you're the one who learned it." He tipped his hat to her, formal and serious, like she was a real cowhand. "Reckon we'll put you to work come roundup." Lucy's whole face glowed. "Really?" "Don't see why not. Ranch needs all the help it can get." Clara watched her daughter practically vibrate with joy, and something cracked open in her chest. This was what Lucy deserved. Space to grow, people who saw her worth, a life bigger than one cramped room, and a mother the world despised. "Thank you," she said quietly. Jake straightened, met her eyes. "For what?" "For making her feel like she belongs." "She does belong. So do you." He walked away before Clara could respond, but his words stayed with her, echoed in her head as she cooked supper, as she washed dishes, as she lay in bed that night with Lucy breathing soft beside her. She does belong. So do you. When was the last time anyone had said that to her? When was the last time she'd believed it? The summer heat broke the following week. Not much, just enough to make the evenings bearable. Clara took to sitting on the cottage porch after Lucy fell asleep, watching the stars and letting the quiet settle into her bones. Jake joined her most nights. They didn't talk much, didn't need to. Just sat in companionable silence, watching the darkness, existing in the same space without demands or expectations. Sometimes he smoked. Sometimes she hummed old hymns under her breath. Sometimes Lucy cried out in her sleep, dreaming of her papa, and Clara would go inside to soothe her. Jake never asked about Samuel, never pushed for details. But one night, Clara told him anyway. He was a good man. Jake didn't say anything, just waited. Samuel, my husband. He was kind and gentle, and he laughed at everything. Even when things were hard, he found a way to laugh.
Sounds like a good way to live. It was. He made everything lighter. Made me feel like maybe the world wasn't such a cruel place after all. Clara pulled her shawl tighter. We had 5 years together, good years. Then winter came, and the sickness came with it. And one morning, he didn't wake up. I'm sorry. Don't be. I got 5 good years. Some folks don't get 5 good minutes. She paused. He was the only person who ever loved me the way I am. Didn't try to change me. Didn't make me feel like I was too much or not enough. Just loved me. That's rare. I know. That's why losing him. She couldn't finish. Jake was quiet for a long moment. Then he spoke, his voice low and rough. Her name was Elizabeth. Clara looked at him.
My fiancée. We were going to get married after the war. Had it all planned out. Little house in Virginia, couple kids, maybe some land to farm. He lit a cigarette, and the match flame illuminated the lines of his face. Diphtheria took her while I was still fighting. Got the letter 3 months after she was already in the ground. Jake. Didn't even get to say goodbye. Didn't get to hold her hand or tell her I loved her one more time. Just words on paper from her sister, saying, "Sorry for your loss. She went peaceful. She talked about you at the end."
That's why you came out here.
Couldn't stay in Virginia. Everything there reminded me of her. The places we walked. The church where we were going to get married. Even the damn sky looked like her eyes. He exhaled smoke into the darkness. So I ran. Came west. Built this ranch. Told myself I was building something new. But really, I was just trying to forget.
Did it work?
No. His voice cracked. Still see her face every night before I fall asleep. Still reach for her in the dark and find nothing there. Clara's eyes burned.
I understand.
I know you do. He turned to look at her. In the moonlight, his face was raw and open in a way she'd never seen.
That's why this feels...
He stopped, shook his head.
Feels what?
Clara whispered.
Different.
He held her gaze.
You feel different. Like maybe I don't have to forget her to find room for something else. Someone else.
Clara's heart stopped. Started again. Raced too fast.
Jake.
I ain't asking for nothing. He stood abruptly, crushing the cigarette under his boot. I know I got no right. You work for me. You got a daughter to think about. I got no business saying any of this.
Jake.
He stopped. Wouldn't look at her. Clara rose, crossed the distance between them, stopped close enough to touch.
I feel it too.
His breath caught.
I've been feeling it for weeks. Telling myself it was wrong. Telling myself I was foolish. A woman like me, thinking a man like you could ever...
A woman like you. His voice went hard. What's that supposed to mean? You know what it means. You've seen how people look at me, how they talk. I'm not exactly the kind of woman men fight over. Those people are blind. He turned to face her, and there was fire in his eyes. They see what you look like and think they know who you are. But they don't know a damn thing. They don't know how you love your daughter, how you work yourself to bone without complaining, how you make food that tastes like heaven and never ask for praise. They don't know how brave you are, how strong, how...
Jake.
They don't know you cry in your pillow at night so Lucy won't hear. They don't know you gave up everything to give her a better life. They don't know...
Jake.
He stopped. How do you know I cry at night? Silence. Because I hear you. His voice broke. These walls ain't thick, and I lie awake, listening and wishing I could, wishing I had the right to. Clara reached up and touched his face. He went still, absolutely still, like a wild animal caught in a sudden light.
You have the right,
she whispered. Clara, I spent 2 years believing I wasn't worth loving, believing what they said about me was true, that I was too much, too big, too broken. Her hand trembled against his jaw.
But you make me feel like maybe they were wrong. Maybe I'm not too much. Maybe I'm just enough.
You're more than enough. His voice was hoarse. You're everything. He kissed her, soft at first, tentative, like he was afraid she might break, or disappear, or push him away. Clara didn't push, didn't break, didn't disappear. She kissed him back, and for the first time in 2 years, she felt whole. They stood on that porch for a long time after, not kissing anymore, just holding each other. Jake's arms wrapped around her, solid and warm. Clara's head resting against his chest, listening to his heartbeat.
What happens now?
She finally asked. Don't know. His voice rumbled through her.
Ain't exactly experienced at this. At what? Caring about someone again. Thought I'd forgot how. Clara smiled against his shirt. I think you remember just fine.
Clara. He pulled back just enough to look at her. I need you to know something.
What?
I ain't good at words, never have been. But what I feel for you, it ain't just convenience. It ain't just because you're here and you cook for me and you're good with the hands. It's you. The way you laugh when you think no one's listening. The way you sing while you need bread. The way you look at Lucy like she hung the moon. Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. I don't know where this goes, Jake continued. Don't know what tomorrow looks like, or next week, or next year. But I know I want to find out. With you. If you'll let me.
I'll let you, Clara whispered. Lord help me. I'll let you.
He kissed her forehead, gentle, reverent. We should get some sleep. Morning comes early.
I know. I don't want to let you go. Then don't. Clara, just a little longer, please. He held her a little longer. When she finally walked back to the cottage, she could still feel his arms around her, could still taste him on her lips, could still hear his voice saying, "You're everything." Lucy was asleep, peaceful and dreaming. Clara lay down beside her daughter and stared at the ceiling. Her heart was so full it hurt. She was falling in love with Jake Thornton, and for once in her life, she wasn't afraid. Morning came too bright and too soon. Clara was in the kitchen before dawn, making breakfast, trying to pretend everything was normal. But her hands kept finding her lips. Her mind kept wandering to the porch, to his arms, to his voice breaking when he said, "You're everything." Morning. Jake stood in the doorway, hat in his hands, eyes searching her face. Morning.
Sleep all right?
Better than I have in years.
Something flickered across his face. Relief, hope.
That's good.
Coffee?
Please.
She poured him a cup. Their fingers touched when she handed it over. Neither of them pulled away.
Clara, I know. We should probably... I know.
Talk about this. Figure out what we're doing.
Tonight, she met his eyes. After supper, after Lucy's asleep, we'll talk.
He nodded, took a long drink of coffee, set the cup down. Tonight, then. He left. Clara watched him go and felt her heart ache with wanting. Tonight couldn't come fast enough. But before tonight came, the world came crashing down. It was late afternoon when the buggy appeared on the road. Clara was in the garden, picking tomatoes. Lucy beside her, chattering about the new foal that had been born that morning. The dust cloud appeared first, then the shape of the buggy, then the faces of the people inside. Mrs. Davenport, the sheriff, a man in a black coat Clara didn't recognize. Her blood went cold.
Lucy, go find Tommy.
But Mama...
Now, Lucy, go.
Lucy ran. Clara stood in the garden, tomatoes forgotten, and watched the delegation approach. They didn't come to the main house. They came straight to her. Mrs. Davenport climbed down from the buggy, her face arranged in false concern. The sheriff followed, hat in hands. The man in the black coat brought up the rear, a sheaf of papers clutched in his grip. Mrs. McAllister. Mrs. Davenport's voice dripped honey laced with poison. I'm afraid we have some difficult news.
What is it?
It's about your daughter. The world tilted.
Lucy's fine. She's with Tommy.
For now, perhaps. But Mrs. McAllister, surely you can see that this situation is untenable. A child living on a bachelor's ranch with a mother of questionable morals. My morals aren't questionable. The town disagrees. Mrs. Davenport gestured to the man in black. This is Mr. Harrison. He represents the County Children's Welfare Office. Clara's heart stopped. There have been concerns raised. Mr. Harrison's voice was flat and official. About the appropriateness of this living situation for a minor child. We're here to conduct an assessment. An assessment of your fitness as a mother, given the circumstances. Clara couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stand there in the garden with dirt on her hands and terror in her heart. You can't take my daughter. No one said anything about taking anyone. Mr. Harrison's smile didn't reach his eyes. We're simply here to evaluate, to ensure the child is safe and well cared for. She is safe. She is well cared for. Ask anyone on this ranch. We intend to. He looked past her toward the main house. Is Mr. Thornton available? What the hell is going on here? Jake's voice cut through the air like a knife. He was striving toward them from the barn, Ben and Tommy flanking him. Lucy ran behind them, her face pale with fear. Mr. Thornton, Mrs. Davenport's smile widened. How lovely. We were just explaining to Mrs. McAllister that there are concerns about her daughter's welfare. Concerns from who? From concerned citizens, from the church, from people who care about the moral upbringing of children in our community, from busybodies who got nothing better to do than stick their noses where they don't belong. Mrs. Davenport's smile flickered. I understand you're protective of your cook, but surely you can see how this looks. An unmarried woman living on your property with a young daughter. The impropriety is impossible to ignore. Only impropriety I see is you coming onto my land and threatening to take a child from her mother. No one is threatening anything. Mr. Harrison stepped forward. We simply need to conduct an assessment. Interview the child. Ensure she's receiving proper care and education. Standard procedure. Standard procedure? Jake's voice went dangerous. You want to tell me what's standard about dragging a welfare man out to a working ranch in the middle of the afternoon? Mr. Thornton, please. We're only trying to help. Help. Clara's voice came out stronger than she expected. Is that what you call it? Coming out here to take my daughter because the town doesn't like how I look? Mrs. Davenport's mask slipped. Just for a second, but Clara saw the hatred underneath. This has nothing to do with how you look. It has everything to do with how I look. It's always been about how I look. You couldn't stand it when I got a job. Couldn't stand it when I stayed. So now you're trying to take the only thing I have left. Clara. Jake's hand found her shoulder. Steady. Grounding. Don't give them what they want. What they want is my daughter. And they ain't getting her. He turned to face Mr. Harrison. You want to conduct an assessment? Fine. Do it. Look at the cottage. Talk to Lucy. Talk to anyone on this ranch. You'll find a well-fed, well-loved child who's happier than she's been in years. And when you're done, you can get back in that buggy and go tell whoever sent you that Clara McAllister is an excellent mother. And if anyone tries to say otherwise, they'll have me to answer to. Silence. Mr. Harrison looked at Mrs. Davenport. Mrs. Davenport's face had gone red. This isn't over, she hissed. It is for today. Jake stepped forward, and something in his posture made the sheriff take a step back. Now get off my land, all of you. They went. Clara watched the buggy disappear over the hill, and then her knees gave out. Jake caught her before she hit the ground. I've got you. I've got you. They want to take her. They want to take Lucy. They ain't taking anyone. You don't know that. You don't know what they can do, what they will do."
"Clara, look at me." She looked. His face was fierce, determined, full of something that looked a lot like love. "I won't let them take your daughter, you hear me? Over my dead body. I don't care who I have to fight or what I have to do. They ain't taking that little girl away from you."
"Why?"
The word came out broken.
"Why do you care so much?"
"Because I love her," his voice cracked. "And because I love you." Clara stared at him. "I know it's too soon. I know I got no right. But I can't watch them hurt you and pretend I don't feel what I feel. I love you, Clara. I love Lucy. And I'll be damned if I let anyone take either of you away." Tears streamed down Clara's face.
"Jake."
"You don't have to say it back. I ain't asking for that. I'm just asking you to trust me, to let me fight for you. Can you do that?" Clara nodded, couldn't speak, could barely breathe. Jake pulled her into his arms and held her while she cried. And somewhere in the chaos of fear and relief and overwhelming emotion, Clara realized something. She loved him too. She loved him too, and she was done being afraid to admit it. The days that followed were the longest of Clara's life. She kept Lucy close, wouldn't let her out of sight for more than a few minutes, made her sleep in the same bed, arms wrapped tight around her daughter's small body, listening to every breath like it might be the last one she'd hear. Jake had his lawyer ride out from town, a thin man with spectacles and ink-stained fingers who listened to everything and promised nothing. "The law is murky on these matters," he said, spreading papers across Jake's desk. "A mother has rights, but the county has authority to intervene if they deem the child at risk." "At risk from what?" Clara's voice shook. "I feed her. I clothe her. I love her more than anything in this world." "I understand, Mrs. McAllister, but the county doesn't always see it that way. They see an unmarried woman living on the property of an unmarried man. They see no formal employment contract, no legal protections. It's not about what's true. It's about what can be argued." Clara's stomach turned. "What do we do?" The lawyer glanced at Jake. Something passed between them that Clara couldn't read. "There are options, none of them simple." "Tell me." "You could leave. Move to another county, another state. Start fresh where they don't know you." "And spend the rest of my life running? No." "You could fight it in court, prove your fitness as a mother. But that takes time and money, and there's no guarantee." "What else?" The lawyer hesitated, looked at Jake again. "The most straightforward solution would be to legitimize your position here. If you were married, for instance, the county would have far less ground to stand on." Silence. Clara felt the blood drain from her face. "Married?" "To Mr. Thornton. Or anyone, really. A married woman with a stable home is much harder to challenge than a widow living in ambiguous circumstances."
"I see."
"It's just one option. You don't have to." "Thank you." Clara stood. Her legs felt like water. "I need some air." She walked out of Jake's study, through the kitchen, out the back door. Kept walking until she reached the fence line, until the house was small behind her, until she could breathe again. Married. The word echoed in her head like a gunshot. She'd been married once, to a man she loved, a man who'd loved her back, a man who'd died and left her alone in a world that had no use for women like her. And now some lawyer was suggesting she marry again. Not for love, for protection, for legal standing, to keep her daughter safe. It made sense. In a cold, practical way, it made perfect sense. But it felt like betrayal. Of Samuel. Of herself. Of whatever was growing between her and Jake. "Clara." She didn't turn around. Knew his footsteps, knew his voice. Knew him in a way she hadn't known anyone since Samuel. "I ain't asking." Jake stopped beside her. "Close. but not touching. I know what Wilson said in there, about marriage. I ain't asking. Good. Her voice came out harsh. Because I ain't a problem to be solved. No, you ain't. And I won't be pitied. Won't be rescued like some damsel in a storybook. I've been taking care of myself and Lucy for 2 years without anyone's help, and I can keep doing it if I have to. I know that too. Clara finally looked at him. His face was calm, patient, waiting. Then what do you want? I want you to know that if I ever do ask, it won't be because some lawyer told me to. Won't be because of the county or Mrs. Davenport or any of that. It'll be because I want to wake up next to you every morning for the rest of my life. Because I want to raise Lucy as my own. Because I can't imagine this ranch, this life, without you in it. Clara's throat closed. Jake. But I ain't asking today. Because you're scared and angry and you got every right to be. And I won't have you wondering, 50 years from now, if I married you for convenience or for love. How do you know there'll be 50 years? I don't. He reached out and took her hand. But I'm planning on it anyway. Clara gripped his fingers like a lifeline. I'm scared. I know. I can't lose her. I can't. You won't. You don't know that. No. He squeezed her hand. But I know I'll fight beside you till the end. Whatever comes. We face it together. Clara leaned into him. Let him hold her up. Let herself be weak, just for a moment. Together, she whispered. Together. The county fair was 3 days away. Clara had almost forgotten about it. The pie competition that was supposed to save them, back when saving them meant rent money and entry fees and dreams of a little bakery. Now saving them meant something else entirely. But Lucy hadn't forgotten. Mama, you have to enter. Her daughter's eyes were fierce. You have to show them. Show everyone that you're the best, that they were wrong about you. Baby, I don't know if now's the right time. It's the perfect time. Lucy grabbed her hands. Please, Mama. You said we were going to try. You promised. Clara looked at her daughter's face. 6 years old and already so brave. Already so sure of a world that had given her every reason to doubt. All right, she heard herself say. All right, I'll enter. Lucy threw her arms around her. You're going to win, Mama. I know it. Clara held her tight and prayed she was right. She spent the next 2 days baking. Apple pies, peach pies, a blackberry cobbler that came out so perfect she almost cried. She tested recipes, adjusted flavors, worked the dough until her arms ached and her fingers cramped. Jake stayed out of the kitchen, but he made sure she had everything she needed. Fresh apples from the cold cellar, butter churned that morning, sugar and flour and cinnamon stocked higher than she'd ever need. You're spoiling me, she said when he brought another crate of peaches. Just making sure you got the tools. Victory's all on you. The night before the fair, Clara couldn't sleep. She lay in bed with Lucy pressed against her side and stared at the ceiling. Tomorrow she'd walk into that fairground and face everyone who'd ever looked at her with contempt. She'd put her pies on a table and let strangers judge her worth. What if she lost? What if they laughed at her again? What if Mrs. Davenport found a way to use even this against her? Mama? Lucy's voice was soft in the darkness. Yes, baby? Are you scared about tomorrow? Clara hesitated, then told the truth. Yes. Me too. Lucy snuggled closer. But Mr. Jake says being brave doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway. Mr. Jake is a smart man. He loves you, Mama. Clara's heart clenched. What makes you say that?
The way he looks at you.
Like you're the sun, and he's been cold for a really long time. Tears pricked Clara's eyes.
When did you get so wise?
I don't know. Maybe I was born that way. Clara laughed, kissed the top of her daughter's head. Maybe you were.
Mama?
Yes, baby?
I think you should marry him.
Silence. Lucy.
I know you loved Papa. I loved him too. But Papa's gone, and Mr. Jake is here, and he makes you smile. You don't smile enough, Mama, but when you're with him, you do.
Clara couldn't speak, couldn't find words for the ache in her chest.
I think Papa would want you to be happy, Lucy continued. He always wanted you to be happy. Remember how he used to say that? All I want is for my girls to be happy.
I remember.
So be happy, Mama. Please.
Clara held her daughter close and let the tears fall.
I'll try, baby. I promise I'll try.
Fair day dawned bright and hot. Clara was up before the sun, packing pies into crates lined with straw. 4 apple, 2 peach, 1 blackberry. Her best work. Everything she had. Jake hitched up the wagon while Tommy and Ben loaded the crates with careful hands. "You got this," Ben said. His bearded face split in a grin. "Best cook in Texas is finally going to prove it to everyone." "Best cook in Texas is right here," Tommy added. "And we're all going to be there cheering." Clara looked at the ranch hands gathered around, men who'd eaten her food for weeks, who'd welcomed her without judgment, who'd become something like family.
"Thank you," she said, her voice thick. "All of you."
"Thank us when you're holding that blue ribbon," Ben replied. "Now get going before we eat those pies ourselves." The ride to town was quiet. Lucy sat between Clara and Jake, buzzing with excitement. Clara's hands wouldn't stop shaking. She pressed them flat against her thighs and tried to remember how to breathe. "You all right?" Jake's voice was low.
"Ask me after."
"You're going to do fine."
"You don't know that."
"I know you." He glanced at her, and his eyes were warm. "That's enough." The fairground was already crowded when they arrived. Families milled between booths and tents. Children ran screaming through the dust. The smell of fried dough and roasted corn filled the air, and everywhere Clara looked, people stared. Whispers followed her as she carried her crates to the pie competition tent. Heads turned, fingers pointed. The familiar weight of judgment pressed down on her shoulders. She kept walking. "Clara Jane McAllister." The competition clerk squinted at her entry form. "You're entering the pie competition?"
"That's what the form says."
"I see." His eyes traveled down her body. That familiar assessment. "Well, good luck, I suppose." Clara took her number and found her assigned table. Set up her pies with hands that trembled only slightly.
"Mama, they're looking at us."
Lucy stood close, her earlier excitement dimmed by the hostile stares surrounding them.
"Let them look, baby. We got nothing to be ashamed of."
"But they're being mean." "Mean people always lose in the end." Clara crouched down to Lucy's level. "You know why?"
"Why?"
"Because while they're busy being mean, good people are busy being good. And good always wins out. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually."
"You promise?"
"I promise." Lucy nodded, squared her small shoulders. "Then let's show them what good looks like." Clara's heart swelled with pride. "That's my girl." The judging began at noon. 3 judges moved from table to table, sampling entries, making notes on clipboards. Clara watched them approach like executioners walking the gallows. When they reached her table, Mrs. Davenport was with them. Not a judge, just hovering, watching.
her smile sharp enough to cut glass. "Ah, Mrs. McAllister," one of the judges, an older man with a white beard, studied her pies. "These look quite substantial."
"Yes, sir. Made them myself."
"I'm sure you did." He cut a small piece of the apple pie, tasted it. His expression didn't change. The second judge, a woman with steel gray hair, did the same. Then the third. They made notes, exchanged glances. Mrs. Davenport leaned in to whisper something to the woman judge. The woman's lips thinned. Clara felt her stomach drop. They moved on to the next table.
"Mama,"
Lucy tugged her sleeve.
"what did they think?"
"I don't know, baby."
"But they didn't smile." "Judges ain't supposed to smile. They're supposed to be fair."
But Clara had seen the whispers, seen the looks. Fair wasn't something she'd ever gotten in this town. The next hour was agony. Clara stood at her table and watched the judges complete their rounds. Watched the other contestants laugh and chat like they belonged here. Watched Mrs. Davenport work the crowd, her voice too low to hear, but her gestures clear enough. She was poisoning them, turning every ear against Clara before the results were even announced. "Don't let her get to you." Jake appeared at her side, solid and steady. "I'm trying." "You made the best pies in this tent. Anyone with working taste buds knows it." "Taste buds don't matter when the whole town's already decided I'm not worth considering." "Then the whole town's wrong." Jake took her hand, didn't let go even when people stared. "And we're going to prove it." The head judge stepped onto the platform at 2 o'clock. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have our results." The crowd gathered. Clara felt Jake on one side, Lucy on the other. Ben and Tommy pushed through to stand behind her. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might crack her ribs. "In third place, for her outstanding pecan pie, Mrs. William Baker." Applause. A woman in a yellow dress went up to collect her ribbon. "In second place, for her remarkable apple crumble, Miss Sarah Henderson." More applause. A young woman, barely 20, beamed as she accepted her award. Clara couldn't breathe. "And in first place," the judge paused, looked at his paper, looked at Mrs. Davenport standing in the front row. Something passed between them. Clara's stomach turned to ice. "In first place, for her exceptional apple pie." Another pause. The judge cleared his throat. "Mrs. Clara McAllister." Silence. Then Jake's whoop, Ben's bellow, Tommy's cheer, Lucy's shriek of joy. Clara couldn't move, couldn't process what she'd just heard. "Mama, Mama, you won! You won!" Lucy was jumping up and down, pulling at her hand. Jake was grinning like a fool. The ranch hands were making enough noise for 20 men. And Mrs. Davenport's face was a mask of pure, distilled hatred. Clara walked to the platform on legs that didn't feel like her own. The judge handed her the blue ribbon. First place, best pie in the county. "Congratulations, Mrs. McAllister." His voice was stiff, but the ribbon was real. The victory was real. "Thank you." She turned to face the crowd. Some people clapped. Others stood silent, arms crossed, faces hard. Mrs. Davenport had already turned away, gathering her friends, whispering poison. But Jake was there. Lucy was there. Ben and Tommy and the ranch hens were there. The people who mattered were there. And Clara realized, standing on that platform with a blue ribbon in her hand, that she didn't need the whole town's approval. She'd spent her whole life trying to earn something she was never going to get. But these people, her people, they'd already given her everything she needed. She stepped down from the platform and walked straight to Jake. "I won." "You won." "I actually won." Was there ever any doubt? Clara laughed, a real laugh, full and free. "About 100 doubts, maybe 200.
Well, Jake pulled her close, right there in front of everyone. Now you can let 'em all go. Mrs. Davenport struck before they could leave the fairground. Clara was packing up her table when the woman appeared, the welfare man Harrison at her side. Mrs. McAllister, a moment. Clara's blood went cold. We got nothing to say to you. I'm afraid you don't have a choice. Mrs. Davenport's smile was vicious. Mr. Harrison has completed his assessment. Tell her what you found. Harrison cleared his throat. After reviewing the situation, I've determined that the child's living circumstances are irregular. The county recommends removal to a proper home, pending further evaluation. No. I'm sorry, Mrs. McAllister, but I said no. Clara stepped in front of Lucy, shielding her daughter with her body. You're not taking her anywhere. The county has authority. The county can go to hell. Mrs. McAllister, please don't make this difficult. Difficult? Clara's voice rose. You want to take my daughter because some bitter old woman doesn't like how I look, and you're asking me not to make it difficult? People were gathering now, watching. The drama too good to ignore. This has nothing to do with appearances. Mrs. Davenport's voice dripped false concern. This is about a child's welfare. Surely you want what's best for Lucy. What's best for Lucy is staying with her mother. A mother who lives in sin with an unmarried man? Who exposes her child to impropriety? That's enough. Jake's voice cut through the crowd like a blade. He pushed forward, the ranch hands behind him. His face was thunder. You got a lot of nerve, Mrs. Davenport. Coming here after Clara just won your fancy competition. After she proved she's twice the woman you'll ever be. Mr. Thornton, this is a legal matter. This is harassment, plain and simple. You couldn't stand it when she came to work for me. Couldn't stand it when she stayed. Couldn't stand it when she won. So now you're trying to take her daughter to punish her for being better than you? How dare you? How dare I? Jake stepped closer. The crowd pressed in, sensing something about to break. How dare you? You've been tormenting this woman since the day she arrived, spitting on her food, spreading lies, making her life a living hell. And for what? Because she's not skinny enough for your taste? Because she doesn't fit your idea of what a woman should look like? Mrs. Davenport's face went white. Clara McAllister is worth 10 of you, Jake continued, his voice rising. She works harder than anyone I've ever met. She loves her daughter more than life itself. She makes food that tastes like heaven and never asks for a damn thing in return. And you want to take her child because of gossip and spite? The law says a mother has rights. The law says you need evidence of abuse or neglect. You got any evidence, Harrison? The welfare man shifted. Well, the circumstances are that a widow took a job to feed her daughter. The circumstances are that she lives in a separate cottage with a locked door. The circumstances are that she's done nothing wrong except exist in a way that offends small-minded people. Jake turned to face the crowd. You all know me. Know I keep to myself, don't stick my nose in other people's business. But I'm sticking it in now. Because what's happening here is wrong. Dead wrong. And if any of you got a conscience, you'll say so. Silence. Then Ben stepped forward. Jake's right. Mrs. McAllister's the best cook we've ever had. And the best person. She don't deserve this. Tommy nodded. Lucy's happy and healthy and loved. Any fool can see that. One by one, the ranch hands spoke up. Then a farmer Clara didn't recognize. Then the baker who'd won 3rd place. Then others. More than she expected. This has gone too far. Leave the woman alone. Ain't right what you're doing. Mrs. Davenport's face twisted. You're all being manipulated. Can't you see? What we see, Jake said quietly, is a bully getting her due. He turned to Harrison.
You want to take this woman's child? You're going to have to go through me, through all of us. And I promise you, it won't be easy." Harrison looked at the crowd, at the angry faces, at Jake, who stood like a man ready to fight until his last breath. I'll need to reconsider my assessment." "You do that." Jake's voice was ice. "And when you're done, you can tell your bosses that Clara McAllister is under my protection. Anyone who wants to hurt her or her daughter will answer to me." He took Clara's hand. "Come on, we're going home." They walked through the crowd, Lucy between them, the ranch hands forming a wall at their backs. No one tried to stop them. And when Clara looked back, just once, she saw Mrs. Davenport standing alone in the fairground, her perfect face crumbling into something ugly and small. It should have felt like victory, but all Clara felt was tired. The ride home was quiet. Lucy fell asleep against Clara's shoulder, exhausted from the day's drama. Jake drove with his eyes on the road, but his hand found Clara's and held it tight. "You didn't have to do that," Clara finally said. "Yes, I did." "You made enemies today, powerful ones." "I've got enemies. Don't keep me up at night." "Jake." "Clara." He turned to look at her. "I meant what I said. Every word. You're worth fighting for. You and Lucy both." Clara's eyes burned. "I don't know what I did to deserve you." "You made pie." His mouth twitched. "Turns out that's all it takes." She laughed, despite everything, despite the fear still coiled in her gut, despite the uncertainty of tomorrow. "We ain't out of the woods yet," she said. "No, but we're closer to the edge than we were this morning."
And if they come back? If Harrison changes his mind again?
Jake was silent for a moment. "Then we face it, together, whatever comes." Clara leaned into him, let his warmth seep into her bones. Together. It wasn't a guarantee, wasn't a promise that everything would be all right. But it was enough. For now, it was enough. 2 weeks passed after the fair. Clara kept waiting for the other shoe to drop, kept expecting Harrison to return with papers and deputies, kept waking in the night, heart pounding, reaching for Lucy to make sure she was still there. But nothing came. No wagons from town, no official letters, no Mrs. Davenport with her poisoned smile and her cruel words. Just the rhythm of ranch life, breakfast and supper, bread rising in the morning, Lucy's laughter echoing across the yard. Just Jake, steady and patient, never pushing, always there. "You think it's over?" Clara asked him one evening on the porch. "Dunno. Maybe." "That ain't exactly reassuring." "Ain't in the business of false hope." He took a drag of his cigarette. "But I talked to Wilson again. He says Harrison filed his report. Said he found no evidence of neglect or improper living conditions." Clara's breath caught. "Really?" "Really. Seems standing up to them at the fair made an impression. Hard to claim a child's neglected when half the county saw her mother win first place and her, whatever I am, threatened to fight the whole welfare office." "Whatever you are." Clara smiled despite herself. "What are you, exactly?" Jake was quiet for a moment. Then he stubbed out his cigarette and turned to face her. "I've been thinking about that." Clara's heart skipped. "Have you now?" "I have." He took her hands. His palms were rough and warm. "Clara, I told you I wasn't going to ask. Not while you were scared. Not while everything was uncertain. But things are different now." "Jake." "Let me finish, please." She nodded. Couldn't speak anyway. "I'm 42 years old. I've spent the last 8 years alone on this ranch, telling myself that was enough, that work was enough, that I didn't need anyone, didn't want anyone, was better off by myself. He paused. Then you showed up, with your pies and your daughter and your stubborn pride, and everything I told myself turned out to be a lie. Clara's eyes burned. I love you, Clara Jane McAllister. I love your laugh and your cooking and the way you sing when you think no one's listening. I love how you hold Lucy like she's the most precious thing in the world. I love how you stood up to those women, even when you were terrified. I love everything about you. Jake. And I love Lucy too. Love her like she was my own. Want to be her father if she'll have me. Want to teach her to ride and rope and run this ranch someday. Want to give her the life she deserves. Tears spilled down Clara's cheeks. So, I'm asking. Jake's voice cracked.
Clara, will you marry me? Not because of the county or the gossip or any of that, but because I can't imagine spending another day without you. Because I want to wake up next to you every morning until I die. Because you're my home, Clara. You and Lucy. You're the home I've been looking for my whole life. Clara couldn't breathe, couldn't think, couldn't do anything but stare at this man who'd seen her at her lowest and loved her anyway. What about Samuel? She whispered. Jake didn't flinch. What about him? I loved him. Part of me will always love him. I know, and that's all right. He squeezed her hands. I ain't asking you to forget him. Ain't asking you to stop loving him. I'm just asking for room beside him. Space in your heart for one more. There's already space. The words came out broken. There's been space since the first time you tasted my pie and called it home. Hope flared in Jake's eyes. Is that a yes? Clara laughed through her tears. That's a yes. Lord help me. That's a yes.
Jake pulled her into his arms and kissed her like the world was ending and beginning all at once. They told Lucy the next morning. She was eating breakfast, syrup dripping down her chin, when Jake cleared his throat. Lucy, there's something we need to ask you. Lucy looked up. Is it about the pies? Because I already know Mama's the best. It ain't about the pies. Jake glanced at Clara, then back at Lucy. It's about me and your mama. Lucy's eyes went wide. Are you getting married? Clara's mouth fell open. How did you... I knew it! Lucy jumped up from her chair, sending her fork clattering. I knew it! I knew it! I knew it! Lucy, calm down. I told Tommy you were going to get married, and he said I was being silly, but I knew, and now it's happening, and... She stopped suddenly. Her face went serious. Wait, you are asking me, right? Because Mr. Jake said I had to approve. He promised. Clara looked at Jake. He did? I did. Jake crouched down to Lucy's level. I told your mama I wouldn't ask her to marry me without asking you first. Because you're part of this. The most important part. Lucy studied him with eyes too old for 6 years. Do you love my mama? More than anything. Do you love me? Just as much. Will you take care of us? With everything I have. Lucy nodded slowly. Then she threw her arms around Jake's neck. Then yes, you can marry my mama. But I have conditions. Jake laughed against her hair. Conditions? I want my own horse, a real one, not just Biscuit. Done. And I want to learn to rope cattle, for real. Done. And, Lucy pulled back, her face fierce. And you have to promise never to leave, no matter what. Papa left, and he didn't mean to, but he did, and I can't do that again. Jake's face went soft. I promise, Lucy. I ain't going anywhere. Not ever.
Pinky swear? He held out his pinky. Pinky swear. They hooked fingers, and something settled in Clara's chest. A rightness she hadn't felt since Samuel was alive. A sense that maybe, finally, everything was going to be all right. News of the engagement spread fast. Clara expected judgment, expected whispers and sneers, and Mrs. Davenport leading another charge against her. Instead, something strange happened. People started coming to the ranch. First, it was the baker who'd placed third at the fair. She brought a cake and congratulations and stayed for coffee. Then the farmer who'd spoken up against Harrison. Then others. Neighbors Clara had never met. Townspeople who'd watched the confrontation at the fairground and found themselves on her side. "You showed real grit," one woman told her. "Standing up to Henrietta like that? Nobody's ever done that before." "She's been running this town for years," another added. "About time someone knocked her down a peg." Clara didn't know what to do with their kindness. Had been so long since strangers showed her anything but contempt. But she accepted their well wishes. Let them taste her pies. Watched Lucy charm them with questions and stories. And slowly, carefully, she started to believe that maybe she belonged here after all. The wedding was set for the last Saturday of summer. Nothing fancy, just the ranch house, a few dozen guests, and the reverend from the church one town over who didn't know Clara's history and didn't care. Clara spent the week before in a daze, baking pies for the reception, altering the blue dress Jake had bought her, trying not to panic every time she thought about standing up in front of people and promising herself to someone new. Having second thoughts, Jake found her in the kitchen the night before, surrounded by flour and half-finished crusts. "No," she wiped her forehead with the back of her hand. "Maybe. I don't know." "Talk to me." Clara set down her rolling pin.
What if I'm not enough? What if you wake up one day and realize you made a mistake? What if... Clara, what if I disappoint you? What if I can't be what you need? What if... Clara. He crossed the kitchen and took her flour-dusted hands. "Look at me." She looked. "You are enough. You've always been enough. The only people who couldn't see it were blind, and their opinion don't matter." He lifted her hands to his lips, kissed her knuckles. "I ain't gonna wake up disappointed. I'm gonna wake up grateful. Every single day, for as long as I live." "How can you be so sure?" "Because I've been alone. I know what that feels like. And I know what this feels like." He pressed her hand to his chest. "This is better. You're better. You're the best thing that ever happened to me, Clara Jane, and I ain't fool enough to let that go." Clara's eyes filled. "I love you." "I love you too," he smiled. "Now finish those pies before the hands riot." They've been talking about wedding cake all week, she laughed, kissed him, got flour all over his shirt, and didn't care. Tomorrow, she was getting married, and for the first time in years, tomorrow didn't scare her. The morning of the wedding dawned clear and warm. Clara woke early, slipped out of the cottage before Lucy stirred, walked to the edge of the property where the land rolled away toward the horizon. She had something to do, something private. From her pocket, she pulled Samuel's wedding ring. She'd kept it all this time, couldn't bear to sell it, even when they were starving. It was the last piece of him she had left. "Hey, Samuel," her voice came out rough. "I don't know if you can hear me. Don't know if there's anything left of you to hear. But I needed to say something before I do this." The wind stirred the grass. Nothing else moved. "I loved you. I still love you. Part of me always will." Clara turned the ring in her fingers. "But I have to let you go now."
Not because I want to forget you, but because I want to live. Really live. Not just survive. Her throat ached.
Jake's a good man. He reminds me of you sometimes. The way he laughs at his own jokes. The way he looks at Lucy like she hung the moon. He'll take care of us. I know he will.
She crouched down, dug a small hole in the earth with her fingers.
I'm going to bury this here. Your ring. So you'll always be part of this place. Part of our home.
She placed the ring in the hole, covered it with dirt.
I hope that's okay. I hope wherever you are, you understand.
The wind picked up, warm and gentle, like a hand brushing her cheek. Clara closed her eyes.
Thank you, Samuel, for loving me when I couldn't love myself, for giving me Lucy, for making me believe I was worth something.
She pressed her hand to the earth.
Rest now. We're going to be all right.
She stood, wiped her eyes, walked back to the cottage to get ready for her wedding. The ceremony was simple. Clara wore the blue dress. Lucy wore white with a ribbon in her hair. Jake wore his best suit, the one he'd bought in Denver years ago and never had occasion to use. The ranch hands lined up in their cleanest clothes, scrubbed and shaved and grinning like fools. Ben stood as Jake's witness. Tommy kept Lucy from bouncing right out of her shoes. The guests filled the yard, more than Clara expected. People from town, neighboring ranchers, even the baker from the fair, who'd brought a cake that nearly rivaled Clara's own. But Clara barely saw any of them. Her eyes were on Jake. He stood at the makeshift altar, watching her walk toward him, and his face was like nothing she'd ever seen. Open, vulnerable, full of a love so fierce it nearly knocked her down. "You're beautiful," he whispered as she reached him. "You're biased." Guilty. The Reverend cleared his throat. "Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today." Clara heard the words from somewhere far away.
Her hand was in Jake's. His thumb traced circles on her palm.
Lucy stood beside them, clutching the rings like they were made of diamonds instead of simple gold.
Do you, Jacob Matthew Thornton, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife? To have and to hold from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part?
I do. Jake's voice didn't waver. With everything I am, I do.
And do you, Clara Jane McAllister, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband? To have and to hold, from this day forward, for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health, until death do you part? Clara looked at Jake, at this man who'd tasted her pie and called it home, who'd defended her when the whole town stood against her, who'd loved her daughter like his own and never asked for anything in return. I do. Then by the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife.
The Reverend smiled. You may kiss the bride. Jake pulled her close, kissed her soft and deep while the crowd cheered, and Lucy threw her arms around both of them, laughing and crying at the same time.
We're a family now, she said. A real family.
We are, Jake agreed, his voice thick. A real family. Clara held them both and let the tears fall. For 2 years, she'd believed she wasn't worth loving, believed what the world told her about herself, that she was too much, too big, too broken. But she'd been wrong. She was exactly enough. And she'd finally found the people who knew it. The reception lasted until sunset. The ranch hands ate until they couldn't move. Lucy danced until she collapsed in Tommy's arms. Clara and Jake moved through their guests, accepting congratulations, laughing at jokes, stealing kisses when they thought no one was looking. As the sun dipped toward the horizon, Clara found herself standing alone at the edge of the celebration, watching, remembering. Having second thoughts? She turned. Jake stood behind her, 2 glasses of punch in his hands.
No, she took a glass. Just thinking.
About what?
About how different everything is. A few months ago, I was standing in that market, watching people spit on my pies. Now,
She gestured at the party.
now I have all this.
You earned it.
Did I? Sometimes I wonder if I just got lucky.
Luck's got nothing to do with it. Jake moved to stand beside her. You worked for this, fought for it, refused to give up even when giving up would have been easier.
I thought about giving up, more than once.
But you didn't.
No,
Clara looked at him.
I didn't.
They stood in silence for a moment, watching the sun paint the sky in shades of gold and rose.
Jake?
Hmm?
Thank you.
For what?
For seeing me. The real me. Not what everyone else saw.
Jake set down his glass, took her face in his hands.
What I saw, he said quietly, was a woman who made pie that tasted like home. A woman who loved her daughter more than life. A woman who was strong and brave and beautiful and didn't even know it. He kissed her forehead. What I saw was you, Clara. And you were everything I didn't know I was looking for.
Clara's eyes filled.
I love you.
I love you too. Now come on. He took her hand. Our daughter's looking for us. Something about wanting to show off her roping skills before bed. Clara laughed.
Our daughter. That sounds nice.
Gets nicer every time I say it. They walked back to the party, hand in hand. Lucy found them immediately, dragging them toward the corral where she'd set up a demonstration. The ranch hands gathered around, cheering as she lassoed fence posts and feed buckets, and, once, a very startled chicken.
Did you see, Mama? Did you see, Papa?
Papa. The word hung in the air, precious and new. Jake's face went soft. I saw, sweetheart. You're going to be the best roper in Texas. I'm going to be the best everything in Texas. Lucy's grin was pure sunshine. Because I've got the best mama and the best papa and the best home. Clara pulled her daughter close, felt Jake's arm come around them both. Home. That's what they were now. That's what they built together. Not a place, not a building. A feeling. A belonging. A love that started with a pie and grew into something none of them had dared to hope for. As the stars came out over the Texas sky, Clara held her family tight and let herself believe in happy endings. Not because life would be easy from now on. It wouldn't. There would be hard times, hard winters, hard choices. The world wouldn't suddenly stop being cruel. But she wouldn't face it alone. Never again. That night, after Lucy was asleep in her new room in the main house, after the guests had gone and the ranch hands had stumbled off to the bunkhouse, Clara stood in her kitchen and made pie.
Not for anyone in particular, just because she could. Because she had flour and sugar and butter and all the time in the world. Jake found her there at midnight, covered in flour, humming a song her mama used to sing.
Can't sleep?
Didn't want to. She looked at him. Didn't want this day to end.
It doesn't have to end. He crossed to stand beside her. We've got forever now.
Forever's a long time.
Not long enough. He dipped a finger in the filling, tasted it, closed his eyes. Lord, that's good.
You always say that.
Because it's always true. He opened his eyes. You know what this tastes like? Clara smiled. She already knew the answer.
Home,
they said together. And it was. After everything, after the cruelty and the loss and the long years of believing she wasn't worth loving, Clara had found her place in the world. A ranch, a kitchen, a husband who saw her clearly and loved what he saw.
a daughter who was happy and safe and full of joy.
It wasn't the life she'd planned, wasn't the life she'd expected. It was better.
Clara Thornton set down her rolling pin, wiped her hands on her apron, and went to stand beside her husband at the window. The moon was rising over their land, their home, their future. She leaned into Jake's warmth and felt his arm come around her. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For being stubborn enough to ask twice." He laughed softly. "Thank you for being stubborn enough to say yes." They stood there in the moonlight, watching the stars wheel overhead, and Clara thought about all the ways her life had changed. The spitting woman at the market, the cruel whispers, the empty cupboards and the fear that never seemed to end. She'd survived all of it. Not just survived, triumphed. And now she was here, in a kitchen full of love and laughter, with a man who called her beautiful and meant it. With a daughter who'd never again doubt that she was wanted.
Clara had spent her whole life being told she was too much.
Turns out, she was exactly right. She was home.